Millionaire hires a fake bride to inherit the company, but an unexpected pregnancy complicates everything. The reflection in the private elevator mirror showed a different Benjamin Crawford than usual. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his navy blue tie, and beads of sweat glistened on his forehead, despite the freezing air conditioning of the Crawford building in Manhattan. At 35, he was about to make the most important and possibly desperate decision of his life. "Mr. Crawford, your assistant has confirmed that you will be in your office in 5 minutes." The voice of Karen, his secretary, echoed over the intercom. Benjamin took a deep breath, watching the elevator doors open on the 50th floor. The empire his grandfather had built was literally in his hands. Or rather, in the answer he would receive from Sophia Chun in the next few minutes. The clause in his grandfather Richard Crawford's will was clear and irrevocable. In order to become president of Crawford Industries, the heir had to be married. A family tradition that, according to the patriarch, would guarantee stability for the company. The deadline was exactly 90 days away when Benjamin would turn 36. Sophia Chun, 32, born in San Francisco to Chinese immigrants, was the obvious choice. Competent, discreet, and most importantly, she knew every detail of the company's operations after 5 years as its administrative assistant. Benjamin trusted her more than any other employee. He crossed the corridor decorated with paintings telling the story of the company, portraits of 3 generations of Crawfords who had turned a small electronics factory into a billion-dollar conglomerate. His office occupied the entire length of the west side of the building, with a panoramic view of Central Park. "Mr. Crawford?" Sophia knocked softly on the frosted glass door before entering. As always, she was impeccably dressed in a gray executive suite, black hair tied up in an elegant bun, tablet in hand. "Sophia, please sit down." Benjamin indicated the leather armchair opposite his mahogany desk. "What I'm going to discuss with you is different from usual." She settled down, crossing her legs and maintaining her usual professional posture. "I'm wedded. You canceled 3 important meetings this morning. I need a personal favor." Benjamin stood up, unable to remain seated. "Actually, it's more than a favor. It's a proposal." Sophia's almond eyes narrowed slightly. In 5 years, she had never seen him so nervous. "As you know, my grandfather left a specific clause in his will about the presidency of the company." He stopped in front of the window, watching the city below. "I have to get married in 3 months." "Yes, the whole board is aware of that," Sophia replied, her voice maintaining its usual professional tone. Benjamin turned to face her. "I want to propose an arrangement, a marriage of convenience. With me." The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia remained motionless, her face a mask of professional composure, but her fingers lightly squeezed the edge of the tablet. "The compensation would be generous," he continued, the words coming out quickly. $5 million, a penthouse on the Upper East Side, and a guaranteed executive position in the company. After 2 years, we could divorce discreetly." "Why me?" Sophia finally asked, her voice low but firm. "Because I trust you. You know the company, you understand how everything works. It would be a beneficial partnership for both of us." Sophia stood up slowly, adjusting the skirt of her outfit. "What if I told you there was something you didn't know about me? Something that could completely change your decision?" Benjamin's heart raced. "What are you talking about? Maybe we should discuss this somewhere else." Sophia checked her wristwatch. "Tonight, at La Bernardine, at 8. Some matters are best discussed outside the office." Before Benjamin could reply, the door opened and Marcus Reynolds, Vice President of Finance, rushed in. "Ben, we need you in the conference room now. The Japanese have preempted the video conference." Benjamin cast a questioning glance at Sophia, who nodded discreetly before leaving the room. As he followed Marcus down the corridor, his mind was racing. What secret could Sophia be keeping that would affect his plans? The afternoon dragged on between meetings and phone calls, but Benjamin could hardly concentrate. At 7:45, his black Audi pulled up in front of La Bernardine. The maitre d' led him to a discreet table at the back of the restaurant, where Sophia was already waiting for him, now wearing a simple but elegant black dress. "Before you give me your answer," Benjamin began as soon as he sat down, "I need to know, what is this secret you mentioned?" Sophia took a sip of water, her fingers trembling slightly as she set the glass down. 3 months ago, I discovered something in the company's old archives. Something about your grandfather and my grandmother. The world seemed to freeze around Benjamin. The secret Sophia was keeping wasn't just hers. It was a secret that connected their families in a way he could never have imagined. Le Bernardin, with its soft lighting and refined atmosphere, seemed to suffocate Benjamin at that moment. His hands gripped the cutlery tightly as he tried to process Sophia's words. The mention of a connection between his grandfather and her grandmother made his stomach turn. "Go on," he managed to say, his voice huskier than he had intended. Sophia opened her bag and took out a weathered envelope. "I found these letters when I was organizing the old files in the basement of the company. They're from 1962. She carefully slid the papers across the table. Their date coincides with the founding of Crawford Industries. Benjamin picked up the letters with trembling hands. His grandfather's elegant handwriting was unmistakable, addressed to a certain Machen. "Machen was my grandmother," Sophia explained, her voice soft. "She worked as a translator for your grandfather during his first negotiations with Asian companies. What these letters reveal is that she was instrumental in Crawford's early success." The words in the letters began to make sense as Benjamin read. His grandfather described in detail how May had not only facilitated negotiations, but also developed crucial strategies for the company's expansion in Asia. More than that, the letters revealed a deep admiration and even affection between them. "My grandmother had a degree in electronic engineering from Peking University," Sophia continued. "She developed several of the initial patents that made Crawford stand out on the market, patents that were registered in your grandfather's name alone." Benjamin's blood ran cold. The implications of that revelation were devastating. Why didn't she ever claim the credit? It was 1962, Benjamin. An Asian woman could never achieve recognition in the American corporate world. Sophia took another sip of water. Besides, there were personal complications. Benjamin found a photograph among the letters. In it, his grandfather and a young Asian woman with a serene beauty were standing in front of a commercial building under construction, the first Crawford Industries office. "They fell in love," Sophia said softly. "But your grandfather was already married to your grandmother, Catherine. May decided to go back to China when she found out she was pregnant," Benjamin added, a sudden realization hitting him. "Your father, he's your father's half-brother, Benjamin. We're cousins." The silence that followed was interrupted only by the soft clink of cutlery from nearby tables. Benjamin felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. The entire Crawford empire, all the history he knew, was founded on a secret that could destroy everything. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you need to know the truth before you propose any marriage agreement." Sophia leaned forward. "And because your grandfather's will has more than just the marriage clause. There's a letter kept with the family lawyer, which should be opened when the new president takes over. A letter which, I suspect, contains Richard Crawford's confession about Machen's true role in founding the company." Benjamin ran his hands over his face, trying to organize his thoughts. "Do you want your share of the company?" "I want justice for my grandmother," Sophia replied firmly. "I want her story to be known and her legacy to be recognized. I'm not after money or power, Benjamin. I'm after the truth." The maitre d' discreetly approached to take their orders, but Benjamin dismissed him with a gesture. His appetite had completely disappeared. "You could have used that information to blackmail me," he observed. "Why didn't you do that?" "Because I'm not that kind of person, and because, despite everything, I respect what Crawford has become. I don't want to destroy the company. I just want the story to be corrected." Benjamin studied Sophia's face, looking for any sign of manipulation or deceit. He found only the same sincerity and competence that he had always admired in her. "What about my marriage proposal? I think now you understand why it would be complicated." Sophia carefully put the letters back in her bag. "Besides, there's something else you need to know. Crawford's Asian division is facing serious problems that don't appear in the official reports. Problems that could affect the whole company in the coming months." Benjamin's cell phone vibrated, an urgent message from the office. Another crisis to manage, another problem to solve. But for the first time in his life, business seemed secondary to the personal revelations he had just received. We need to talk more about this, he said, getting up. About all this. Can we meet tomorrow? My apartment, away from prying ears? Sophia nodded, also getting up. At 7. And Benjamin, there's more. Much more you need to know. As he watched Sophia leave, Benjamin realized that his life had changed irrevocably in the last few hours. The marriage of convenience he had planned would now be impossible. But perhaps that was just the tip of the iceberg. The secrets of the past threatened not only his future in the presidency, but the entire Crawford legacy. Benjamin's apartment on Park Avenue seemed strangely empty that night, despite its sleek, modern decor. Sitting in his private office, he had spent the last few hours obsessively investigating every mention of Mei Chun in the company's digitized records. The findings had left him even more disturbed. When the doorbell rang at 7 o'clock, Benjamin had already drunk 2 shots of whiskey, something he rarely did. Sophia was there, punctual as always, carrying a thick folder of documents. I thought you should see this before we continue our conversation, she said, handing over the folder as she entered. Her navy blazer contrasted with a white silk blouse, maintaining her usual professional elegance even outside the office. Benjamin led her into the living room, where a panoramic view of Manhattan served as a backdrop for the conversation that would change their lives. I found more information about your grandmother in the archives, he began. She wasn't just a translator, she was a visionary. Yes, Sophia confirmed, taking a seat on the Italian leather sofa. The patent she developed for integrated circuits revolutionized the industry at the time. But there's more, Benjamin. The Asian division is facing a crisis because it abandoned the principles she established. Benjamin opened the folder, finding detailed reports on production failures in the Shenzhen factories. How did you get this information? I have contacts in China. Family, actually. The problem isn't just technical, it's structural. Crawford has moved away from the quality control practices that my grandmother implemented. The new executives are cutting costs in dangerous ways. The implications were serious. If these problems came to light, the company's shares would plummet, and Benjamin could lose the presidency before he even took over. Why do you care? He asked, studying her face. After everything my grandfather did to your family, because Crawford isn't just about your grandfather or my grandmother. It's about thousands of employees, about innovation, about a legacy that goes beyond our families. Sophia stood up, walking over to the window. Besides, there's something you still don't know about me. Benjamin felt his heart race. More secrets. For the last 2 years, I've been working on a side project. A technology based on your grandmother's original principles, but adapted for the digital age. She pulled a USB stick out of her pocket. This could save the Asian division and revolutionize Crawford's entire production line. Benjamin plugged the drive into his laptop, and his eyes went wide when he saw the designs. It was brilliant, innovative, and exactly what the company needed. You're as brilliant as your grandmother, he murmured in admiration. And you're different from your grandfather, Sophia replied softly. That's why I decided to share all this with you, instead of taking it to the competition. The silence that followed was fraught with unresolved tension. Benjamin realized that he was seeing Sophia in a new light, not just as his efficient assistant, but as a brilliant and complex woman who carried a legacy as important as his own. I have a new proposal, he finally said. Not a marriage of convenience, but a real partnership. You take over as Vice President of Technological Innovation. We implement your project, and together we tell the real Crawford story. No secrets, no lies. Sophia stared at him in surprise. What about the clause in the will? Maybe it's time to break some traditions, Benjamin replied, moving closer to her. My grandfather built this empire by hiding the truth. I want to rebuild it by revealing it. It won't be easy, Sophia warned. The board will resist, the shareholders will panic. Then we'll face it together, Benjamin added. As partners. At that moment, something changed between them. The air seemed thicker, full of unspoken possibilities. Benjamin realized he was too close to Sophia. He could smell her soft perfume, see the determined glint in her eyes. There's one more thing you need to see, Sophia said, her voice low. She took one last letter out of her briefcase. This is the last correspondence between my grandmother and your grandfather. It was written a week before she left for China. Benjamin read the letter with a heavy heart. It was a painful farewell, full of unfulfilled promises and broken dreams. But there was also hope. Hope that one day the truth would come out, that their legacy would be greater than their personal choices. They never saw each other again, Sophia commented, her voice breaking. My grandmother died last year, still keeping these letters. Benjamin folded the letter carefully. So let's honor her memory, not just with words, but with actions. Shall we start tomorrow? Sophia nodded, a small smile appearing on her lips. Tomorrow. When she left, Benjamin stood at the window, watching the city lights. In 3 months' time, he would have to choose between maintaining his family's traditions or creating his own path. Sophia's presence in his life had changed everything, and maybe that was exactly what he needed. The next morning, the Crawford office was buzzing with rumors about the extraordinary board meeting called by Benjamin. The morning sun bathed the meeting room on the 50th floor, where nervous executives adjusted ties and consulted tablets, waiting for what promised to be one of the most important meetings in the company's history. Benjamin watched the city through the panoramic window, his reflection showing a determination he didn't feel internally. Next to him, Sophia was discreetly organizing a presentation that would change the course of Crawford forever. Are you sure about this? She whispered, her fingers brushing lightly against his arm. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Benjamin replied, turning to face the 12 board members who were beginning to take their seats. Marcus Reynolds, the financial vice president, was the first to break the tense silence. Benjamin, this meeting is highly irregular. We have the video conference with Shenzhen in an hour. The video conference will have to wait, Benjamin replied, his voice firm. What we're going to discuss today affects Crawford's entire future. Sophia began the presentation, projecting historical documents onto the main screen. Richard Crawford's letters to Machen appeared, enlarged and digitally restored. Gentlemen, Benjamin began, for 60 years, Crawford has built its reputation on a foundation of innovation and excellence. Today, we discover that this foundation is deeper and more complex than we imagined. The buzz of surprise grew when Sophia presented the original patents, the technical designs signed by Machen, and the records proving his fundamental contribution to the company's early success. This is ridiculous, exclaimed Harold Patterson, the longest-serving member of the board. Richard Crawford built his company from scratch. Not alone, Sophia interjected, her voice calm but firm. And the problems we face today in the Asian division are a direct result of abandoning the principles established by Machen. Benjamin projected the current reports from Shenzhen, revealing production failures and questionable cost-cutting practices. The board members' faces paled at the figures. But we have a solution, he continued, giving way for Sophia to present her revolutionary project. A technology that not only fixes our current problems, but projects Crawford into the future. Over the next hour, Sophia detailed her innovation, a brilliant fusion between her grandmother's original principles and the needs of the digital age. The board members, initially skeptical, began to show genuine interest. That's impressive, admitted Marcus Reynolds. But how would we implement these changes without causing panic in the market? I have a plan, Benjamin replied. First, I appoint Sophia Chun as the new Vice President of Technological Innovation. Second, we announce a strategic restructuring of the Asian division, gradually implementing the new system. What about the marriage clause? Asked Patterson, his eyes narrowed. You have less than 3 months, Benjamin. Crawford needs to evolve, Benjamin declared. If the board doesn't accept my proposals, including revising this obsolete clause, I'm prepared to give up the chairmanship. The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia felt her heart racing, aware of how much Benjamin was risking. We need time to discuss this, Marcus said at last. I suggest a 48-hour recess. Benjamin agreed with a nod. As the board members left, muttering amongst themselves, he and Sophia remained in the meeting room. You've just risked everything, she said softly. No, he replied, turning to face her. For once, I'm doing the right thing. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of phone calls and emergency meetings. In the evening, Benjamin invited Sophia to his apartment for dinner, a strategic discussion that turned into something more personal. My grandmother used to say that big changes require big sacrifices, Sophia commented, watching the city light up from the balcony. But also great partnerships. Benjamin approached, handing her a glass of wine. You know, it's ironic. When I proposed that marriage of convenience, I was only thinking of maintaining control. Now, I'm willing to lose everything to do what's right. Maybe you don't have to lose anything, Sophia suggested, her eyes meeting his. Maybe it's possible to honor the past and still build a different future. The moment was interrupted by Benjamin's cell phone. An urgent message from Marcus Reynolds requesting a private meeting the next morning. Do you think we managed to convince them? Benjamin asked, putting the phone away. I think we've given them something to think about, Sophia replied. And sometimes, that's all you need to start a change. As the evening progressed, they both knew that the next 48 hours would determine not only Crawford's future, but also their own. The legacy of Richard Crawford and Mei Chan hung over them as a reminder of what was at stake. Not just a company, but the chance to right past wrongs and build something new and true. The next morning, Marcus Reynolds' office on the 49th floor emanated a palpable tension. The financial vice president had arrived 2 hours earlier than usual, his tired eyes revealing a bad night's sleep as he reviewed piles of documents on his mahogany desk. Benjamin walked in punctually at 7:30, finding not only Marcus, but also Patricia Morrison, the head of the legal department, a woman in her 60s known for her shrewdness and unwavering loyalty to the company. I thought it best to include Patricia in this conversation, Marcus explained, gesturing for Benjamin to sit down. What you proposed yesterday has significant legal implications. Benjamin nodded, maintaining his firm posture. I imagine you've done your homework? We did more than that, Patricia replied, opening a red folder. We spent the night checking every detail of the allegations about Mei Chan. The question is, why would Richard Crawford leave a letter to be opened only when the new president takes office? Perhaps he wanted to ensure that the truth came out at the right time, Benjamin suggested. Marcus leaned forward. Or maybe he wanted to protect something bigger. We found this in his private files. He slid a yellow document across the table. It's a partnership agreement, dated 1962, signed by Richard Crawford and Mei Chan. Technically, she owned 30% of the original company. Benjamin's heart raced. This was a revelation that not even Sophia knew about. Why did this never come to light? Because a week later, Mei transferred her stake to a holding company in Hong Kong, Patricia explained. A holding company that still exists and theoretically still owns that 30%. And guess who's the only living heir to that holding company? Marcus added, Sophia Chan. Benjamin felt his world spin. Sophia wasn't just Mei's granddaughter. She was technically one of Crawford's largest shareholders, even if she didn't know it. That changes everything, he muttered. Not necessarily, Patricia interjected. We have a proposal. The board is willing to approve all your changes, including the appointment of Sophia as VP of Innovation, but on one condition. What? A marriage, Marcus replied. Not for convenience, but to legally unite the two families in their stakes in the company. This would resolve the legal issues and honor your grandfather's original wish to keep the company under family control. Benjamin stood up and walked over to the window. The irony didn't escape him. His original plan for a marriage of convenience had turned into something much more complex and meaningful. What if Sophia doesn't accept? Then she has the legal right to claim her share, Patricia explained, which would probably result in a court battle that could last for years and devastate the value of the company's shares. Benjamin's cell phone vibrated, a message from Sophia asking about the outcome of the meeting. He felt a tightness in his chest at the thought of how this revelation would affect her. I need to tell her, he finally said. She deserves to know the whole truth before making any decisions. You have until the end of the day, Marcus warned. The board meets tomorrow for the final decision. Leaving Marcus' office, Benjamin found Sophia waiting in the corridor. Her face showed concern when she saw his expression. We need to talk, he said softly. Not here. Let's go for a walk. 20 minutes later, they were walking through Central Park, the movement of the city seeming distant as Benjamin explained the morning's findings. Sophia listened in silence, her face going through a myriad of emotions. My grandmother never mentioned this deal, she finally said, taking a seat on a bench by the lake. Why would she keep it a secret? Perhaps for the same reason she kept everything else secret, Benjamin suggested, taking a seat next to her. To protect the company and our family. So now it's not just about recognizing her contribution, Sophia reflected. It's about taking on a responsibility that she chose to leave behind. Benjamin gathered his courage for what he needed to say next. The council has a proposal, a way to unite our family's legacies legally. Sophia's eyes met his, understanding dawning in her gaze. Marriage, not like before, he hastened to explain. Not out of convenience or obligation, but because maybe it's fate righting the wrongs of the past. A heavy silence fell between them, filled only by the distant sounds of the city and the gentle movement of the lake water. Benjamin realized he was holding his breath, waiting for her answer. What if I said I needed time to think? Sophia finally said, her voice trembling slightly. I'd say you deserve all the time in the world, Benjamin replied. But the council needs an answer by tomorrow. Sophia stood up, adjusting her blazer with precise gestures that Benjamin recognized as her defense mechanism when she was nervous. You'll have my answer by then. As he watched her walk away along the park path, Benjamin felt the weight of generations of decisions, secrets and consequences on his shoulders. Sophia's next decision would not only affect their lives, but the future of everything their families had built, together and apart. Dusk in Manhattan brought with it a palpable restlessness. In her Park Avenue apartment, Sophia stared at the illuminated city through her living room window, her grandmother's letters spread out on the coffee table. The phone call she had just made to her mother in San Francisco still echoed in her mind. Your grandmother always knew this day would come, her mother had said, her voice breaking. The 30% of the company, she kept that secret not out of shame, but out of love. Love for Crawford, love for the work she helped build. The sound of the doorbell interrupted her thoughts. It was Claire Matthews, her best friend since college and now a respected corporate lawyer. I brought wine and all my experience in mergers and acquisitions, Claire announced, entering the apartment. Although I suspect this is more complicated than a simple business matter. Sophia poured 2 glasses of red wine, her hands slightly trembling. How can I make a decision of this magnitude in less than 24 hours? Let's look at the facts, Claire suggested, taking a seat on the sofa. First, you discovered that your grandmother was one of the original founders of Crawford. Second, you inherited a significant stake in the company. Third, Benjamin Crawford, the man who proposed to you a week ago, now represents a possible union between 2 families with a complex history. And fourth, Sophia added softly, I can't stop thinking about him. Claire raised an eyebrow. That's new. When exactly did your feelings for Benjamin change? Sophia took a long sip of wine. Maybe they've always been there, just dormant, seeing how he's reacted to all these revelations, how he's willing to risk everything for the truth. He's different from what I imagined, different enough to consider a real marriage. Before Sophia could reply, her phone vibrated with a message from Benjamin. I need to show you something. Can I come by in 30 minutes? In his own apartment, Benjamin was finishing collecting old documents he had found in his grandfather's personal safe. Among them was a letter addressed to him, with specific instructions to be opened only when he found the right person to share not just the company, but life. The cab dropped him off in front of Sophia's building exactly half an hour later. In the elevator, his heart was pounding. He was no longer the calculating businessman proposing a convenient deal. He was a man who finally understood the true meaning of partnership. Claire opened the door, giving Benjamin a knowing smile. Good luck, she muttered as she passed him, leaving the apartment. Sophia was standing by the window, the night city serving as a silent witness to the moment unfolding. I found this in my grandfather's safe, Benjamin said, handing her the letter. I think he always knew this moment would come. Together, they sat on the sofa while Sophia opened the envelope. Richard Crawford's firm handwriting filled 2 pages with surprising revelations. My dear grandson, if you are reading this letter, it means that you have found someone special, someone who, I hope, will be as extraordinary as Mate Sean was in my life. What few people know is that the marriage clause in my will was never about control or tradition. It was about finding someone who shared not only your success, but your values and vision. May wasn't just my business partner. She was my soulmate in every way except timing. Our love was sacrificed for social conventions and my own cowardice. But she taught me that true partnerships are built on respect, admiration, and genuine love. The 30% of the company that belongs to the Hong Kong holding company isn't just a number on a piece of paper. It's the legacy of a love that I could never fully live out, but which helped build something bigger than ourselves. Benjamin, if you found someone who makes your heart beat faster and your mind dream bigger, don't make my mistakes. True success is not just in the numbers on the balance sheet, but in the courage to love completely and the wisdom to recognize when fate gives you a second chance. By the time Sophia had finished reading, silent tears were streaming down her face. Benjamin gently held her hand. "I'm no longer proposing a settlement or a business solution," he said softly. "I'm asking for a chance to build something together, something that honors the past but looks to the future, something based on true love, not convenience." Sophia looked up, finding in Benjamin's gaze all the sincerity and vulnerability he had always hidden under his professional facade. "How can we be sure that this isn't just fate pushing us to right the wrongs of the past?" she asked. "Maybe that's exactly what it is," Benjamin replied, stepping closer. "But it's also about who we become, about how we complete each other in a way that goes beyond any business deal." The silence that followed was filled with the weight of decades of history, forbidden love, and second chances. The city continued its frenetic pace outside, oblivious to the moment of transformation taking place in that room. "Yes," Sophia finally whispered, a soft smile lighting up her face. "Yes to rebuilding Crawford together. Yes to honoring our grandparents' legacy. And yes to us." Benjamin pulled her into a hug, feeling as if all the pieces of a complex puzzle were finally falling into place. Tomorrow, they would face the council together. But at that moment, they were just two people discovering that sometimes love has its own plans, regardless of agreements or conveniences. The next morning dawned with a different energy in the Crawford building. The buzz in the corridors was inevitable. Employees whispered about the board meeting scheduled for 10 o'clock, and rumors about drastic changes in the company's leadership circulated like electric currents through the building's 50 floors. Benjamin arrived early, impeccable in his navy blue suit, but with a serenity that contrasted with his usual tense posture. In the reception area on the 50th floor, he found Sophia talking to Marcus Reynolds. She was wearing a dark red executive suit that conveyed confidence and determination. "The first shareholders have arrived," Marcus informed her, consulting his tablet. "Patricia is finalizing the documents in the conference room." "Good," Benjamin replied, exchanging a meaningful glance with Sophia. "Shall we proceed as planned?" Sophia nodded, her serene countenance masking the storm of emotions she was feeling. The night before had changed everything, not just her relationship with Benjamin, but her understanding of the true meaning of the Crawford legacy. The meeting room was packed when they entered, as well as board members. Important shareholders had been summoned to what promised to be a historic moment in the company's history. The panoramic windows let in the Manhattan sunlight, illuminating tense, expectant faces. "Ladies and gentlemen," Benjamin began, his firm voice echoing through the room, "before we present our formal proposal, there is a story that needs to be told." He signaled, and Sophia projected a series of old photographs onto the main screen. The first showed Richard Crawford and Mei Chun in front of the company's first office. "Crawford Industries wasn't just built by one visionary man," Benjamin continued. "It was built by an extraordinary partnership, a partnership that for decades remained in the shadows because of social conventions and prejudices of the time." A murmur ran through the room as the documents from the Hong Kong holding company were presented, followed by the original designs signed by Mei Chun. "But today we're not just here to right the wrongs of the past," Sophia interjected, her voice clear and confident. "We're here to build Crawford's future on a foundation of truth and innovation." Over the next hour, they presented a detailed restructuring plan. The merger of the Hong Kong holding company with Crawford would be just the first step. Sophia's technological project, based on her grandmother's original principles, would be implemented gradually in the Asian division, with the potential to revolutionize the entire production line. "What about the presidency?" asked Harold Patterson, his voice laden with skepticism. "The clause in the will is still valid." Benjamin and Sophia exchanged a look before he replied, "Yes, it's valid, and it will be respected." A tense silence filled the room as Benjamin approached Sophia, taking her hand. "Last night," he continued, "we discovered one last letter from my grandfather. A letter that not only revealed the truth about his partnership with Mei Chun, but also expressed his wish for Crawford to be led by someone who understood the true meaning of partnership, both in business and in life. Sophia and I," Benjamin continued, "decided to honor that wish, not through an agreement of convenience, but through a true union, a union that represents not only the merging of two families, but the realization of our grandparents' original dream." Patricia Morrison was the first to break the silence, a discreet smile on her lips. "The documents are ready to be signed. The merger of the holding company, Sophia's appointment as Vice President of Innovation, and the marriage papers, if you wish to proceed today." The tension in the room gave way to a wave of approval as Benjamin and Sophia signed the documents, one by one. The last piece of paper, the marriage license, was signed under the watchful eyes of those present. "Welcome to the new era of Crawford Industries," Marcus announced, prompting a round of applause. Hours later, when the sun was setting over Manhattan, Benjamin and Sophia were on the terrace of the building, gazing out over the city that had witnessed the transformation of their lives. "Your grandmother would be proud," Benjamin said softly, hugging Sophia from behind. "Our grandparents," she corrected, turning to face him. "They gave us more than a company. They gave us a chance to do things the right way this time." The kiss they shared there, with New York at their feet, sealed more than a business deal. It was the beginning of a new story, a story of love, redemption, and second chances that had begun 60 years earlier, with two pioneers who dared to dream beyond their time. The news of Benjamin Crawford and Sophia Chan's wedding spread like wildfire through the financial media. The Wall Street Journal headlined, "Crawford Industries revolutionizes leadership. Historic union reveals secret of decades." The company's shares soared with the announcement of the merger and a new technology project. A week after the board meeting, Benjamin watched Sophia give her first presentation as Vice President of Innovation to the development team. Her presence naturally commanded the attention of the room as she explained the nuances of the system that would revolutionize Crawford's production. Mei Chen's original patents focused on efficiency and quality, Sophia explained, projecting complex diagrams. "Our new technology expands these principles into the digital age, allowing for virtually perfect quality control." From the back of the room, Benjamin noticed skeptical looks from some of the older engineers. Change was always met with resistance, especially in a company with such deep-rooted traditions. "Miss Chun," interrupted Robert Walsh, engineering director for 20 years. "With all due respect, implementing a completely new system in Shenzhen could be catastrophic for our current production." Sophia smiled, expecting such an objection. "That's why we'll start with a pilot production line. Dr. Walsh, I'd like you to personally lead this initial phase." The strategy was brilliant, to turn a potential opponent into an ally. Benjamin was proud to see how skillfully Sophia navigated corporate politics. After the meeting, they met in her office, formerly a conference room that now displayed an elegant mix of modernity and traditional Chinese elements. "You were amazing," Benjamin complimented, closing the door. Walsh left here, practically converted. "I learned from the best," Sophia replied, lightly touching the photo of her grandmother on the table. May always said that real change happens through collaboration, not imposition. Benjamin's phone vibrated. A message from Marcus about the press conference scheduled for the following day. The official announcement of the wedding and the changes in the company would attract international attention. "Are you ready to face the reporters tomorrow?" he asked, noticing a shadow of concern pass across her face. "Almost. I'm still processing how my life has completely changed in 2 weeks." Sophia moved closer to the window, watching the movement of the city below. From administrative assistant to vice president and CEO's fiancé, it seemed surreal. Benjamin joined her, his hands finding hers. There are times when I wonder if it's real too. But then I remember the letters, the projects, everything our grandparents built together, and I realized that maybe we were destined for this moment. A soft knock on the door interrupted them. It was Patricia Morrison, carrying an old briefcase. "Sorry to intrude," she said, entering the room, "but we found something in the archives that you need to see before tomorrow's press conference." The folder contained old photographs and newspaper clippings from the time Crawford was founded. In one of the photos, which was particularly touching, Richard Crawford and May Chun were in a laboratory, poring over blueprints and prototypes. "Look at the date," Patricia pointed out. "This photo was taken exactly 1 week before May left for China. And look at this." She showed a notebook where calculations and technical drawings were mixed with little personal notes in Chinese and English. "These are codes," Sophia realized, her eyes widening. They've developed their own language to document their innovations without others being able to copy them. Benjamin examined the notes with growing admiration. It wasn't just a case of forbidden love. They were true intellectual partners. "Exactly," Patricia agreed. "And there's more. We found records of correspondence between them that continued for years, always disguised as business communications with the Hong Kong holding company." As they delved deeper into the documents, an even richer story of love and innovation revealed itself. Richard and May had kept their partnership alive through decades of physical separation, building a legacy that went far beyond the walls of Crawford. "This changes our narrative for tomorrow," Sophia reflected, carefully organizing the documents. "It's not just about writing past wrongs. It's about continuing a collaboration that never really ended." Benjamin nodded, an idea taking shape in his mind. "What if we used their coding system as the basis for our new digital security platform? It would be a way of honoring their innovation while adapting it for the future." The rest of the afternoon was spent preparing the presentation for the press, now enriched by this new discovery. Between technical discussions and rehearsals, Benjamin and Sophia found moments to share glances and subtle touches, their own love story developing in parallel with the legacy they were building. As the sun began to set, tinging the office with golden hues, Sophia found one last note in her grandmother's notebook, written in English in Richard Crawford's elegant handwriting. "May, even apart, we have built something greater than ourselves. May future generations find the path we couldn't follow." Benjamin hugged Sophia from behind, reading the note over her shoulder. "Looks like we found it," he whispered, kissing her neck softly. "And we'll do even better," she replied, turning to face him. "Because we don't have to hide anything." Night fell over Manhattan, enveloping the Crawford building in a blanket of twinkling lights. On the 50th floor, two souls that fate had intertwined were preparing to reveal to the world not only a love story from the past, but also their own version of a future built on the foundations of truth, innovation, and love. The press conference turned the main lobby of the Crawford building into a sea of flashes and microphones. Reporters from all over the country flocked to witness what the Financial Times was already calling the greatest turnaround in American corporate history. Benjamin discreetly adjusted his tie as he watched Sophia chatting with Patricia backstage. She wore a navy blue dress that perfectly matched her suit, a deliberate choice to visually represent their union on camera. 3 minutes, Marcus announced, checking his watch. "The main news networks are live." A buzz went through the crowd as Crawford's senior executives began to take their places on the stage. Benjamin felt the familiar tightening in his chest as he saw his grandfather's picture projected on the big screen, an image from the 1960s that now carried a whole new meaning. "Ready?" he whispered to Sophia, offering his arm. "More than ever," she replied, entwining her arm in his. The moment they stepped on stage together was captured by dozens of cameras. The flashes illuminated their united faces, silently telling a story of redemption that transcended generations. "Good morning," Benjamin began, his firm voice echoing through the microphone. "We are here today not only to announce changes in the leadership of Crawford Industries, but to reveal a truth that has been hidden for 60 years. Sophia stepped forward, her presence commanding immediate attention. In 1962, two extraordinary people created something revolutionary. It wasn't just a company. It was a vision of the future built on innovation, respect, and love. The next 2 hours were a careful unveiling of Richard Crawford and Mei Chen's story, interspersed with announcements about the company's future. Each document presented, each photo shared, provoked audible gasps from the audience. The technology we present today, Sophia continued, is a direct evolution of the principles established by our grandparents. Their coding system, which has kept their partnership alive through the decades, will now serve as the basis for our new digital security platform. A murmur of approval ran through the room when she demonstrated how the old code system would be adapted to protect corporate data in the 21st century. But beyond technological innovation, Benjamin resumed, today we celebrate something deeper, the union of two families, two histories, two legacies that were always destined to meet. The reporter's questions came in cascades, each one more incisive than the last. How would the discovery affect shareholders? What would be the impact on Asian operations? Was the marriage just a corporate maneuver? It was at this point that Sophia surprised everyone, including Benjamin, by taking the microphone and sharing something personal. 5 years ago, when I started as an administrative assistant, I found a note written by my grandmother in her diary. She said, "True love knows no boundaries of time or circumstance." At the time, I didn't fully understand the meaning of those words. Today, looking at Benjamin, at our team, at the future we are building together, I finally understand. The silence that followed was broken by spontaneous applause. Several people in the audience discreetly dried their tears. After the press conference, as the reporters dispersed and the technical teams dismantled the equipment, Benjamin found Sophia in her office, gazing out of the window at the city. "You never mentioned that diary note," he said softly, moving closer. "Some truths need the right moment to be revealed," she replied, turning to face him. "Like us." Benjamin pulled her into an embrace, smelling the soft scent of her hair. "Do you know what impresses me the most? How every new discovery about our grandparents seems to bring us closer together. It's as if they've left a map," Sophia reflected, "not just for the company but for ourselves." A soft knock on the door interrupted them. It was Robert Walsh, the engineering director, carrying an old briefcase. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, visibly moved, "but after today's presentation, I need to share something. Machen wasn't just a business visionary. She saved my father's life." The revelation opened yet another window into the past, showing how May and Richard's legacy extended far beyond official documents and patents. Each news story that emerged confirmed that they were on the right track, not just for the company, but for their own lives. As the afternoon wore on in Manhattan, Benjamin and Sophia realized that they had started something bigger than themselves. Crawford was no longer just a company. It was a living testimony to how love, truth, and innovation could transform not just businesses, but entire lives. A month after the press conference, the mood in the Crawford building oscillated between excitement and apprehension. The company's shares had initially soared with the announcement of the changes, but were now facing worrying volatility as the market digested the full implications of the revelations. Benjamin found Sophia in a tense meeting with the legal team. A group of minority shareholders had filed a lawsuit questioning the legitimacy of the merger with the Hong Kong holding company, claiming that the romantic story was a smokescreen for a corporate maneuver. They're demanding an independent investigation into the authenticity of the documents, Patricia explained, spreading papers out on the conference table. And there's more. An ex-employee from the 1960s is selling a different story to the press. Sophia felt her stomach turn. "What story?" "He claims that Machen stole another engineer's patents." Marcus interjected, his expression grave. "It's completely false, of course, but the media is starting to circulate the narrative." Benjamin watched as Sophia maintained her professional composure, although he could see the tension in her shoulders. "Who is this former employee?" "Walter Grayson," Patricia replied, projecting an old photo onto the screen. "He worked in the engineering department for 3 years, was fired in 1963 for inappropriate behavior with female employees. My grandmother mentioned him in her diaries," Sophia said softly, leafing through a worn notebook. "He constantly harassed her, tried to discredit her at technical meetings." The room fell silent, as the implications of this revelation settled in. It wasn't just a corporate battle. It was a clash that exposed deep scars of prejudice and misogyny. We need to be proactive, Benjamin decided, standing up. Marcus, prepare a complete dossier on Grayson, including the records of his dismissal. Patricia, I want a team dedicated to checking every document, every patent, every piece of evidence we have. What about the shareholders? Sophia asked, her mind already calculating strategies. Let's call an extraordinary meeting, Benjamin replied. Show them not only the historical documents, but also how your technology is revolutionizing our production in Shenzhen. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. While the legal and PR teams worked on their respective fronts, Benjamin and Sophia met with Robert Walsh and the engineering team to review the first result of the pilot project. The numbers are impressive. Walsh presented projecting efficiency graphs. The quality control system, based on the original codes, reduced failures by 87% on the pilot line. And most importantly, a young engineer added, it's completely original. There's nothing like it on the market. Mei Chen's signature is on every line of the code. At the end of the day, exhausted but determined, Benjamin and Sophia met on the terrace of the building. The sun was setting over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that contrasted with the somber mood of the moment. Sometimes I wonder if we're doing the right thing, Sophia confessed, leaning on the railing. Exposing all this history, maybe some truths should remain buried. Benjamin moved closer, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Your grandmother lived in the shadows for decades, watching someone else take credit for her work. We can't let her story be distorted again. But at what cost? She asked, turning to face him. If we lose this battle, it's not just a reputation at stake. It's Crawford's future. It's the jobs of thousands of people. Then we won't lose, Benjamin replied with steely determination. We have the truth on our side, and more importantly, we have each other. Sophia's phone vibrated, a message from her mother in San Francisco. She had found more letters, more evidence of Mei Chen's genius and her impact on the industry. I'm going to San Francisco tomorrow, Sophia decided. I need to see these documents in person, talk to the people who knew my grandmother. I'm going with you, Benjamin said without hesitation. This is our fight, remember? As they planned their trip, new messages arrived. Support from former employees, testimonials defending Mei Chen's integrity. Even an email from a retired MIT professor who remembered studying her projects. The truth, they realized, had a force of its own. Like water finding its way through rocks, it emerged slowly, inexorably, no matter how long it took. Do you know what strikes me most? Benjamin commented as they walked down to his office. How each attack only seems to strengthen our cause. Every lie exposed reveals more truths about your grandmother. And about us, Sophia added softly. Every challenge brings us closer together, makes us stronger together. That night, as the city lit up under the night sky, they worked side by side, preparing for the battles to come. Richard and May's story had waited 60 years to be told. Now it was up to them to make sure it was told correctly. Fighting for the truth had its price, but as Benjamin and Sophia would discover, some things were worth any cost. The legacy they were protecting wasn't just about patents or profits. It was about love, courage, and the transformative power of truth. The trip to San Francisco turned out to be more significant than Benjamin and Sophia had imagined. Sophia's mother's apartment, located in a charming Victorian building on Nob Hill, held not only documents, but decades of carefully preserved memories. Li Chun, a 70-year-old woman with piercing eyes identical to her daughter's, welcomed them with a mixture of anxiety and determination. On the antique dining table, dozens of boxes were waiting, each containing fragments of Mei Chen's extraordinary story. Your grandmother knew this day would come, Li told Sophia in Mandarin, while pouring green tea into delicate cups. She kept records of everything, not just to protect herself, but to protect the legacy she'd built with Richard. Benjamin watched the interaction between mother and daughter, noticing how Sophia naturally alternated between English and Mandarin, bridging two worlds just as her grandmother had been. Although he didn't understand the language, he could feel the emotional weight of the conversation. Here, Li continued in English. opening a sealed box. These are the original technical diaries. May documented every experiment, every innovation. But most importantly, she carefully removed a yellowed envelope. These are the letters Richard sent after she returned to China. Sophia translated the letters while Benjamin examined them. They were different from the business correspondence they had found in the Crawford archives. These were deeply personal, revealing a man devastated by the departure of his true love. He tried to convince her to come back, Sophia explained, her voice breaking. He offered to leave everything to start again somewhere else. But May knew that would destroy the company they had both built with so much sacrifice. And there was more at stake, Lee added softly. May was pregnant by my older brother. In 1960s China, a child out of wedlock with an American, she shook her head. The consequences would have been devastating for everyone. Benjamin felt his heart squeeze. His family's history was intertwined with pain and sacrifice far deeper than he had imagined. How did she manage to keep her brilliant mind occupied in China? Lee smiled, a glint of pride in his eyes. May never stopped innovating. Under different names, she kept developing technologies. Some of the biggest Chinese electronics companies today owe their early success to her secret consultancies. As they looked through the documents, one particular photograph caught everyone's eye. It showed May in her makeshift laboratory in Shanghai in 1975, surrounded by young female engineers. She may not have received the public recognition she deserved, Lee explained, but she dedicated her life to mentoring other women in science. Her true legacy goes far beyond patents. The afternoon progressed as they delved deeper into May's personal archive. Each document revealed not only her technical genius, but also her extraordinary strength of character. Among revolutionary projects, there were notes about her hopes for the future, especially for her granddaughter. She wrote this when you were born, Lee told Sophia, handing her a special notebook. Her predictions for the future technology, and her hopes that you would one day be able to complete the work she started. Benjamin watched Sophia absorb her grandmother's words, silent tears streaming down her face. At that moment, he understood that his fight wasn't just about clearing May's name or saving Crawford. It was about fulfilling the dream of an extraordinary woman who sacrificed everything for innovation and love. We need to take these documents to New York, he finally said, not just to prove our case, but to inspire the next generation of innovators at Crawford. Lee nodded, but hesitated before speaking. There's one more thing you need to know. May left a final letter, which was to be opened only when the truth came out. The time has come. The envelope Lee had taken from a safe built into the wall was sealed with red wax, the Chinese character for truth printed on the seal. Sophia opened it with trembling hands, while Benjamin held her free hand. The contents of the letter would change not only the course of their current battle, but the entire future of Crawford Industries. May Chun had left one last innovation, one that would prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, her fundamental contribution to the company and offer a path to the future that no one had imagined. Mei Chen's final letter changed everything. Inside the envelope, in addition to her parting words, were detailed technical schematics of a technology that was decades ahead of its time, a quantum processing system that she had theorized as early as the 1960s, but never had the opportunity to develop. Impossible, muttered Robert Walsh, examining the diagrams at an emergency meeting in Crawford's development lab. She foresaw quantum computing concepts before the terms to describe them even existed. Sophia, who had spent the evening translating her grandmother's technical notes, nodded. She called it natural harmonic computing. Her theory was based on observing patterns in nature applied to information processing. Benjamin watched the team of engineers pore over the documents with a mixture of admiration and hope. May's latest innovation could not only validate her legacy, but revolutionize Crawford's future. The timing couldn't be better, Marcus commented, consulting his tablet. The hearing with the dissident shareholders is scheduled for next week. If we can prove that this is viable, it's not just viable, interrupted a young engineer of Asian origin, Amy Wong. It's brilliant. These principles could solve the energy efficiency problems facing the whole industry. The development room was buzzing with renewed energy. Engineers who had initially questioned May's legacy now studied her notes with almost religious reverence. The genius of her vision was undeniable. "We need a working prototype before the hearing," Benjamin declared, his mind already calculating deadlines and resources needed. "Something that unequivocally demonstrates that her theory works." 5 days, Amy replied promptly. "With a dedicated team and full access to the labs, we can have a proof-of-concept model in 5 days." Sophia felt her heart race. It was as if her grandmother, even after so many decades, was still guiding her steps, providing exactly what they needed at the crucial moment. The next few days turned into a race against time. Crawford's development lab operated 24 hours a day, with teams taking turns and shifts. Benjamin and Sophia practically lived in the building, coordinating efforts and providing necessary support. The day before the hearing, as they watched Amy and her team carry out the final tests on the prototype, Sophia found another note hidden among her grandmother's technical diagrams. "To my granddaughter, when this moment arrives, remember that true innovation is born not only from the mind, but from the heart." Every line of this project carries not only calculations, but love for science, for discovery, and for the man who shared these dreams with me. May you find your own way to unite reason and emotion, as I have. Benjamin, reading over his shoulder, felt his eyes water. "Your grandmother wasn't just decades ahead in technology," he said softly. "She understood that the greatest advances come when we allow our humanity to guide our intelligence." A shout of celebration from the test team interrupted the moment. The prototype had worked, and the results were even more impressive than they had expected. "The numbers are insane," Amy explained, projecting performance graphs. "The system processes information with 1/10 of the usual energy, and the error rate is practically zero." Patricia Morrison, who had been following the developments closely, immediately began preparing patent documentation. "This changes everything," she declared. "Not only does it prove Mei Chen's genius, but it establishes Crawford as a leader in quantum computing." The night before the hearing, Benjamin and Sophia finally allowed themselves a moment's rest on the terrace of the building. The city sparkled under a clear autumn sky, as if nature itself were celebrating their discovery. "Do you know what impresses me the most?" Sophia reflected, leaning on the parapet. "How my grandmother turned her pain into something extraordinary. Instead of letting bitterness consume her, she channeled it all into innovation." Benjamin hugged her from behind, breathing in the soft scent of her hair. "Like you're doing now, turning a historic injustice into a transformative moment for Crawford." Sophia's phone vibrated. Another message from her mother in San Francisco. Leah found one last letter, this one addressed jointly to Benjamin and Sophia, to be opened only after the revelation of the quantum project. "Should we wait until tomorrow?" Benjamin asked, looking at the envelope in his hands. Sophia shook her head. "No, I think we need your words now, before we face the council." Together, under the Manhattan stars, they opened the last message from their grandparents, a letter that would not only change the outcome of the hearing, but would completely redefine the meaning of their union and the future of Crawford Industries. The joint letter from Richard Crawford and Mei Chen began with a surprising revelation. They had foreseen this moment. Not only the union of their families through Benjamin and Sophia, but also the transformation that their technology would bring to the modern world. "Dear Benjamin and Sophia," the letter began, with Richard's elegant handwriting intertwined with Mei's precise characters. "If you are reading this, it means that our greatest hope has come true. Not only has the truth come out, but you have found each other." On the morning of the hearing, Crawford's main auditorium was packed. Shareholders, executives, and journalists flocked to what promised to be one of the most decisive moments in the company's history. Benjamin adjusted his tie as he watched Sophia take one last look at the presentation with Amy Waugh. "The opponents have arrived," Marcus whispered, moving closer. "Walter Grayson is with them, and he's brought 3 retired engineers to testify against us." Benjamin nodded, maintaining the outward calm he had learned from his grandfather. "Let them in. It's time to end the story once and for all." The presentation began with Patricia Morrison detailing the legitimacy of the historical documents. Each piece of evidence was meticulously presented, each of Grayson's claims systematically dismantled with irrefutable facts and records. Then Sophia took the stage. Her presence was magnetic, a perfect blend of May's elegance with a strength of her own that commanded respect. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "today we are not just defending historical truth. We are presenting the future." With a gesture, she signaled for Amy to begin the demonstration of the quantum prototype. The numbers and graphs that filled the screens were impossible to ignore. The system developed from Mei Chen's theories didn't just work. It outperformed any similar technology on the market by an impressive margin. "Impossible," Grayson interrupted, standing up. "Those figures can't be right. No technology from the 1960s could have predicted." "Exactly," Sophia replied, her voice calm but firm. Mei Chen wasn't just developing technology for her time. She was designing the future, a future that we can now realize. Benjamin watched as the shareholders' faces changed from skeptical to amazed as Amy demonstrated the system's practical applications. The energy efficiency, the precision of the calculations, the elegance of the solution. Everything pointed to a technological revolution that would put Crawford decades ahead of the competition. "But there's something else," Benjamin said, taking his seat next to Sophia. "Something our grandparents left specifically for this moment." He projected the joint letter onto the screen, his words deeply touching everyone present. Richard and May had documented not only their professional collaboration, but also their shared vision for the future of Crawford, a company that would unite the best of East and West, of tradition and innovation. They knew this day would come, Sophia continued, her voice laced with emotion. Not just the revelation of the truth, but the moment when Crawford would become something greater than its origins. The vote that followed was almost unanimous. The dissenting shareholders, faced with irrefutable evidence and the promise of a revolutionary future, withdrew their objections. Even Walter Grayson, visibly shaken, left the auditorium in silence. Hours later, in Benjamin's office, the core team was quietly celebrating. Amy couldn't contain her enthusiasm as she discussed the development possibilities with Sophia, while Marcus was already calculating the impact on the company's shares. "Your grandmother would be proud," Benjamin said softly to Sophia, finding a private moment between the celebrations. "Not just for today's success, but for how you handled it all with grace and dignity." Sophia smiled, tears of joy shining in her eyes. "Our grandparents gave us more than a company or a revolutionary technology. They gave us an example of how love can transcend time and circumstance." Night fell over Manhattan when they were finally alone, contemplating the city from the terrace that had become their special place. The letter from their grandparents rested between them, its last words echoing in their hearts. Crawford's true legacy is not in patents or profits, but in the courage to unite hearts and minds in pursuit of something greater. May you continue this journey with the same love and dedication we share, transforming not only the company, but the world around you. Benjamin hugged Sophia, feeling how their destinies had intertwined in ways that neither of them could have foreseen. Crawford's future was secure, but more importantly, they had discovered a truth that transcended business. The transformative power of true love and innovation born from the heart. 6 months after the historic hearing that changed the course of Crawford Industries, the company building pulsed with a different energy. The corridors, once dominated by sober corporate attire, now saw a harmonious mix of traditional executives and young engineers, symbolizing the fusion of legacy and innovation that Benjamin and Sophia had achieved. The development lab, expanded to occupy 3 entire floors, became the beating heart of the new Crawford. Amy Wong, now director of quantum innovation, led an international team that turned Mei Chen's pioneering visions into tangible reality. "The first commercial units will be ready in 2 months," Amy reported during the morning board meeting. "The field tests have exceeded all expectations." Benjamin watched with pride as Sophia led the meeting. As Vice President of Technological Innovation, she had revolutionized not only the company's products, but its entire culture. The mentoring system she implemented, inspired by her grandmother's secret work in Shanghai, was training a new generation of inventors and leaders. MIT University wants to establish a partnership. Marcus added, consulting his notes. They proposed to create the Machen Institute for Advanced Computing. The news provoked smiles around the table. It was yet another validation of the legacy they had fought to preserve and expand. After the meeting, Benjamin found Sophia in her office, now decorated with an elegant mix of modern art and historical photographs. The most prominent showed Richard Crawford and Machen in their laboratory, their smiles frozen in a moment of pure creative joy. "I received an interesting letter today," Sophia said, handing Benjamin an envelope. "It's from a National Museum of American Innovation. They want to make a permanent exhibition about pioneers in technology, with my grandmother as the central figure." Benjamin smiled, remembering how, only months before, they had fought for the truth about May to be recognized. "The world is finally ready for your story." "Our story," Sophia corrected gently. "Crawford isn't just about technology or business. It's about how love can transcend decades and transform lives." The intercom interrupted the moment, Karen announcing the arrival of Walter Grayson. The former employee had requested a meeting, his first appearance since the hearing. Benjamin and Sophia welcomed him together. Grayson looked smaller somehow, the weight of years and regrets visible on his bowed shoulders. "I'd come to apologize," he said without preamble, "and to bring this." He placed an old folder on the table. "These are projects that May developed in 1962. I kept them all these years, out of shame, out of envy. It doesn't matter anymore. They belong here." Grayson's belated honesty was yet another piece fitting into the puzzle of the past. The projects revealed even more of May's genius, including concepts that could complement her work in quantum computing. In the afternoon, on the terrace that had become their private refuge, Benjamin and Sophia reviewed the new documents while the Manhattan sun painted the sky in golden hues. "Every time we think we know the whole story," Sophia reflected, "we discover more layers, more depths." "Like our relationship," Benjamin replied, taking her hand. The engagement ring, a unique piece that combined Eastern and Western design, sparkled in the evening light. "We started with an agreement of convenience and found something much deeper." The wedding was scheduled for next month, a ceremony that would symbolize not just the union of two people, but the conclusion of a love story that had begun 60 years earlier. Machen would arrive from San Francisco next week for the final preparations. She would bring with her the traditional qipao that May had never been able to wear at her own wedding, now carefully restored for Sophia. "Do you know what thrills me the most?" Sophia said, turning to face Benjamin. "How our grandparents turned their pain into hope. They couldn't live their love openly, but they planted the seeds so that we could." Benjamin pulled her close, feeling how their destinies had intertwined in ways that no trade agreement could have predicted. "And now we have the responsibility to continue their legacy, not just at Crawford, but in everything we do." The sound of young laughter caught his attention. In the lab downstairs, Amy and her team were celebrating another breakthrough. Crawford's new generation was flourishing, free from the prejudices and limitations of the past. "The future they dreamed of," Benjamin murmured, "is finally here. And it's even brighter than they imagined," Sophia added. As night fell over Manhattan, Benjamin and Sophia stood on the terrace, their hearts full of gratitude for the past that had brought them together and hope for the future they would build together. Crawford Industries was no longer just a company. It was a testament to the transformative power of love, truth, and innovation. Somewhere, Richard Crawford and Machen smiled, knowing that their impossible love had paved the way for something extraordinary, a union that transcended businesses, cultures, and generations, proving that some bonds are truly unbreakable.